Could we see institutional really shifting into an ETH platform? Today we'll break it down for you. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to thank our sponsor today. That's Coinbase. Coinbase is a place for you guys to go and get started in crypto. And it's very easy to get enrolled, get started. You connect it to your bank account, put a little bit of money in there, and make your first trade, whether you go out and buy some Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever it might be, Solana, you name it. It's all available right there. The future of money is here. Use our link down below. You're going to get up to $200 in crypto to get started. Keyword there, up to $200. So check it out. Use our link. Now, we've been talking about this topic for quite some time, and that is that major institutions and investment categories are starting to look at Ethereum over Bitcoin for the future potential of where blockchain is going. We all know why. I mean, the idea of Ethereum is a working blockchain. And this is something we've covered for quite a bit. That was a good example of Microsoft right there. But CME Group was going to introduce tokenization technology now to enhance capital market efficiency. And they're using Google Cloud's new universal ledger. And this is kind of interesting because when you look at CME, let me kind of zoom in on that for you guys. You'll notice that this exchange offers the widest range of global benchmark products across all sorts of things: interest rate, equity, foreign exchanges, energy, you name it. These guys are involved in a lot of that. So again, this is very positive, I think, for the ETH blockchain in general. They also reported record annual ADV of 26.5 million contracts. So that's the amount of contracts that are in the system right now. And they're looking at growing that across all asset classes. So one of the things I want to jump to is Google, because Google has launched their Ethereum compatible blockchain RPC service. Now, this is an issue that caused a little bit of a struggle because they did run into the transactional side of things. So within this, you've got Google Cloud, Deutsche Telekom, Alibaba, quite a few that are now joining Zetachain which is running on Ethereum. So let me go to a clip real quick, kind of explain this a little bit more. Take a look.
Zetachain collaborates with Google Cloud to activate a validator on the blockchain, supporting fully compatible universal apps that span all chains.
From our perspective at Google, it wasn't just the large institutions that we were going after, but it would also be sort of the newer developers who are looking to build and not rack up a ton of costs. And so, that is probably best borne out by the fact that we have currently an Ethereum RPC service that's 100 QPS free. And so the goal is to really provide the developer tooling, not just for a couple chains, but for every chain that we can.
So as you can see here on Zetascan, they're already starting to move into cross-chain transactions right now, 1.3 million right there. But if you look at the transactions themselves, they're already moving in right there between Polygon, Base, etc. This, of course, starts to go into the next phase of this, and this is where Agg Layer comes in. This is kind of interesting. Agg Layer is going to enable one-click chain-aligned stablecoin with deep liquidity. This is where it changes TVL altogether. It's really going to be an interesting, I think, transition that we'll see in blockchain. And all of this, again, is because blockchain could be the new driving force here around a lot of these assets. So Polymarket is launching on Solana, enabling Solana deposits. This is another thing. This is kind of an interesting move because I think a lot of people were very happy, I guess, maybe, of what this meant. However, there's a little bit of a hidden gotcha there. Solana community is celebrating an EVM app implementing a bridge to off-ramp Sol from their ecosystem. Then you could dump it for USDC and then use it on an ETH L2. So that's a bit of an interesting move there. And I think the point being is that where this could take us continues to showcase why ETH could be a sleeper in this market. Other things I want to hit on right now is Polygon proof of stake should be using account abstraction. One note they had here is this will become even easier to do on apps on any chain once that Agg Layer, let me kind of zoom in on that, is fully distributed across all chains. That's coming, and that will really start to change things quite a bit. Let me go to this next clip because this will give you a little bit more insight on what Agg Layer will do to boost Ethereum. Take a look.
On the side of the Agg Layer, that's the direction that we will be pointing people towards very shortly. It's using any sort of liquidity that you have in your wallet, connecting it to a seamless connectivity layer that allows you to play anywhere, right? Regardless if it's POL in your wallet, regardless if you have Sol in your wallet, whatever it is, we're building the rails to ensure that these things work that much more seamless. If you add up all the teams that are pointing towards the Agg Layer, you're adding up 85% of the gaming ecosystem as a whole.
All right, so he's talking about the gaming ecosystem right there. And if you think about gaming ecosystem, then you got to kind of look at what's going on with on-chain usage right now on Sonium. And this continues to trend up. So we're probably going to see a little bit more activity here. This is kind of another good example of this on Polygon. Look at this right here. Let me kind of zoom in on this because I don't think we can show that. Polygon flips based by number of addresses now using USDC. So again, big strike up. Maybe Polygon is super undervalued right now. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. How would you play some of these investments? Are you holding ETH over Sol? Would you bet on both? Is Polygon in your portfolio right now? Let me know what you guys are doing. Let me go over to this Visa report. This shows, remember Visa chose Solana, and you can already see right here on total that Polygon is actually outpacing Solana. Let me kind of zoom in on that right there. 2.7 versus 2.2. All right, so let me show you something here on tokenized private credit. And this is kind of interesting. Let's go over here and I'll zoom in on this chart. And you'll notice right here, obviously Ethereum, the top dog here that we're talking about, but you also look at Polygon's move over Solana. This is intriguing because it's almost 7x that of it. With that, along with other real world asset data, this is institutional alternative funds. Again, ETH leading out the way in terms of overall growth, continues to climb up too. So tokenized assets and securities in general, this could be the beginning of where a lot of these institutions are truly starting to make their choice going forward on Ethereum. And I think this is the factor that everybody's looking at. Let me hit on another headline right here. XRP surged as Solana's futures ETFs made an unremarkable $12 million debut, meaning simply when you look at the potential of what these ETFs can do, Ripple, XRP, Banker's Coin, Bankcoin, using potential cross-border transactions. Solana is all about fast and easy. And I think that's the scenario because there's a lot of chains that are going faster than Solana even right now. Now, Bloomberg tried to break this down a little bit. Take a look.
They're just futures, yes, but then it's still a big thing because it's the first Solana linked product and everyone is excited, especially crypto faithfuls. So Ether is an altcoin, but it's the biggest altcoin. And then Solana is the next, it's actually the 6th largest altcoin, but it's an altcoin. Okay, so does this mean it paves the way for all other altcoins? There's XRP, so that's why everyone is pretty excited.
Ether is the backbone of the Ethereum blockchain. What does Solana bring to the table here?
You can just think of it as the rival of Ethereum. And in fact, many would say that it's even better in Ethereum in some ways. It's faster, it's a little cheaper by some metrics. But then XRP is the 4th largest coin, but it has some legal challenges.
What specifically are folks in the ETF world looking for?
Last week there was an ETF that tracks Pengu. So it's a cute little penguin. I urge you to Google it after. It's an NFT. There's one that's called Sui.
All right, so that's Bloomberg. That's one of the top financial networks out there. That's a problem, I think, for crypto in general, is understanding if traditional institutions don't truly understand what the benefits of many of these tokens and projects can bring to the table, it's going to be difficult for us to see investment going in. Now, granted, institutions, I think, when you think about the nerds of institutions who are trying to figure out what rails to go on, they probably get it a little bit more. But I think from the front side of it, many people are trying to figure out, what do you invest in? Here's a good example of easy to understand. This is going over to Crypto Slam. This is where people that are collectibles, if you're a Pokemon collectible, you know all about this collector out there. But Courtyard is the #1 place where this is happening. Again, riding on Polygon, where those transactions are occurring. If you look at NFT sales by volume, ETH still leads the way, but guess who #2 is right now? Polygon, coming in right there. Again, over Mythos Chain, Base, Bitcoin, and then Solana all the way down here. So they definitely have not necessarily positioned themselves as an NFT. Maybe they were known as the meme coin token, but I think what you've got to get is a differentiator in the market to be able to really excel into this next level. This is going to be super important because as we move into mainstreaming crypto and blockchain, getting a good message out of these blockchains is going to be critical going forward. Now, a good message, let's talk about that. You got Bitcoin maxi issues right here because you've got a stablecoin now on Ethereum coming in from Custodia Bank, who right there launched an ERC20 standard ETH mainnet stablecoin. That's right, guys. That's where Bitcoin lovers now realize they're having to go and utilize the ERC20 standard for their stablecoins and the potential. We're going to see a lot of banks and other entities launching stablecoins. And obviously, I think it's going to be mostly on ERC. Let's talk about Securitize real quick. We've had Carlos on the show before. Remember, they're very tied into BlackRock, but BUIDL is now on Solana. This, again, is like a year later. We've already seen this activity on Avalanche, ETH, clearly. And for them to go now on, or at least on Solana, I don't know, is this the third selection or not? I think it still is going to be a major factor for both Avalanche and ETH going forward on tokenized securities. Let's jump over to this event right here, which is Exchange 2025. This is essentially all the all-stars of the ETF world. And this is important because it will give us a little bit of an insight where this market is trending to. Take a look at this next clip.
You don't get a chance to have these kinds of all-stars, and those you don't know, we're in a gigantic convention hall. Our viewers love their money market funds. I mean, 4% makes perfect sense to them. That is a very sticky group of people. It is hard to move them out, even with 20%, 22% in the S&P 500 last year. We had, what, $6 trillion in money market funds? They didn't move. We kept saying, when is this going to move? And it didn't move.
Well, it didn't move. Those balances remain high, and we saw a record for the ETF industry last year. So it goes to show you that money is coming from somewhere else, and it's actually a bullish sign for additional flow.
I've had issues with Bitcoin and a use case for Bitcoin for a while. I've been a big backer of blockchain in general. Is Bitcoin a unique use case in the crypto community, or can you do it with Ether or Solana or other forms of it?
Ethereum and a lot of other digital assets are more kind of a bet on the disruptive abilities of blockchain technology more broadly.
It's mostly retail still going in there.
So it's about 50% retail, 20% advisors, and about 30% institutions is the breakdown today. And I think it's still very early innings for those latter two.
I think another iteration that we're also going to see, and certainly in some of the filings, has been index-based products.
I think the most recent one was for a Pudgy Penguins ETF.
All right, so they hit on a few things there. One of the things was the split on the market sectors, meaning retail holding about 50% and institutional still early. That is exactly the opposite where it should be. In most cases where we will see this in the future, I think institutions will play a bigger role of this, and retail will play a much smaller role. Now, granted, many people are still investing more cash off the sidelines into these kind of assets, and I think that's a big bullish sign as well. They mentioned that in the clip, and I would agree with that. I think because it's not coming out of the money market, so that means they've got their safe cash over here, but they're looking at new investment opportunities coming out of that liquidity into the market. That is bullish overall. I want to go to, because this is another thing that is bullish, I think, for at least ETH, and that is that Bitwise just dropped some fire, and this is in reference to filing a staking to its Ethereum ETF. This would be huge because, again, it could move some of those people in money markets off high center into Ethereum ETFs, which could have higher yields than those money markets. So be watching that as we get a little closer. Here's Matt. He's talking about ETH being the leader. Take a look.
What are they excited about? They're excited about stable coins. They're excited about tokenization. They're excited about agentic AI. If I look at who's the market leader in those three areas, Ethereum has the largest share of stablecoin issuance. It has by far the largest share in the tokenization market. It's the leader in the agentic AI space. If you just look at where the demand is bubbling up, it's still bubbling up on ETH and ETH layer 2s. But anyone writing off Ether is ignoring the fact that that's where the users still are in the things people think are going to be multi-trillion-dollar markets in the near term. I don't worry about ETH's ability to monetize them. It'd be like Facebook if it did ads 2 years after it was formed. It was too early. What I worry about is, are the things that are going to be multi-trillion-dollar markets being built at least in part on ETH? And when I look at those three things, ETH is the leader.
All right, so he has said a very interesting case there, and that is multi-trillion-dollar markets being built on ETH. If you look at the ETH chart right here, I mean, this came in, at least on the local bottom right here at around 1,700. This is up almost in the last 2 weeks, almost 18%. So ETH in general, have we finally hit the bottom right there? Speaking of bottom, we got to take a look at Matic right here. If you go back, and of course this is trading on the new token signal there as POL, but You look at this right now, it's below where its all-time low was. So is this finally at its rock bottom right now? Is Matic, is Polygon getting ready to make a move, obviously with this new potential opportunity that lies within the institutional scheme? We'll take a look at all that for you guys. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content. Follow me on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.